The term comparative politics emerged in 1960s. Therefore, it is said that that branch of study came in 1960s. It is a new method of study which came in 1960s, although as a substance, it is old. In that context, if you look, why comparative? Why it is a new method was introduced in 1960s only? Because comparative denotes a new kind of method. Then, because look the book which appeared in 1966. In 1960s, if comparative politics is evolved as a discipline in 1960s, I would like to highlight the specific features of 1960s. And what was? Because context is very important where anything is evolving. And in that context, 1960s was a phase of a Cold War. And a phase of a Cold War, and Cold War was an ideological battle between the capitalism and communism. And American political science always try to establish the fact that liberal democratic political system are more superior than any other political system exist in this world. It means, first time, why Cold War is important? Because liberal political ideology was getting challenged from the communist political ideology. The communist political ideology, and therefore Americans wanted to convey the message that liberal political system is better than the communist system, and in that context a new method, comparative politics, emerged in the literature of political science. This is context number one. And second, look, the method which was adopted by political theorists in US particularly after 1920s onwards, that new method of study is known as a behavioralism. And what is a behavioralism? It was a new method of study that was introduced in political theory, and that claimed that what is the basic assumption of behavioralism? That nature of political science is just like a natural sciences. Political science is very similar to the physics and chemistry, and therefore in political science we can evolve the same general theories just like in natural sciences. Therefore, they emphasize over quantification, measurement, prediction, and these are the basic essence of a scientific method. So whether you say behavioralism or a scientific method or a kind of effort for quantifying the fact in political theory, that was a behavioralism. And therefore, what was the focus? Behavioralism tried to focus over study of human nature or the behavior of human being which can be observed, which is worth of measurement. Therefore, behavioralism means a kind of scientific method, scientific tool for studying, for evolving a general theory, just like what we evolve a general theory in physics like third law of Newton. But behavioralists failed in order to develop a general theory in a political science, just like a natural science, although we can't say that it was a failure of behavioralism, but we can say that there is a difference of content in. There is a huge difference of content in the natural sciences and in a political sciences, in a social sciences. Because political science, what is the content of study? Human nature. But in the natural sciences, chemical does not change from person to person, but the human nature change. Therefore, behavioralists were failed to obtain their objective for developing a general theory in political science. Second reason was that first, it was a sort of Cold War. Second, behavioralist movement could not get the desired objective. Third, See, Asian African nations, most of the Asian African nations became independent and they were free from the colonial and imperial subjugation. They became free from colonial and imperial subjugation, and therefore, few nations of developing countries they opted for a democratic political system. Few opted for a non-democratic. Few opted for a communist political system. Various forms of political system they have preferred. But the political system which was adopted in a developing country like in Asia and Africa, it was performing differently in comparison to what was it practiced in the European and US. In the European countries and US, therefore the parliamentary form of government in Britain was working differently. But when the parliamentary form of government was adopted in India, when it was incorporated in the Indian Constitution, the parliamentary form of government of Indian situation was functioning differently in comparison to the Britain. Therefore, political scientists were very much curious to search, or they were very much curious to know the reason that why the same political form of government that is operating differently in the different set of the condition in different cultural and social context. In that condition, comparative method became popular. It means if we want to know the reason why comparative politics is a separate branch of political theory or autonomous branch of political theory came into existence, the reason you can tell the three. Although when we say a Cold War politics and liberal wanted to display that liberal political system is more advanced, more better than their communist system or the earlier fascist political system. Therefore, whether they were willing to compare between the different forms of government. Because see, comparing is nothing new. Because sometime what happened, I also compare that my mobile is better than mobile of one of my close friend. My car is not better than one of my close friend. See, comparison always there. We always compare with other. You see, in schooling too, we always compare in handwriting, in marks. So what is the motto of comparison? If motto is objective, neutral, because we are the part of academic discipline, we are studying comparative politics as a part of academic discipline. Therefore, what is the purpose of comparison? If I want to show, I want to display that no, my mobile is superior, my car is superior, and therefore comparison become meaningless. Comparison become meaningless because comparison means objectively we should display the fact that what is the drawback, what is the good feature in the mobile which is kept by my close friend, and what is the bad feature of mobile. And same time we have also discovered that what is a good feature of car which I am owning and what is a bad feature of car which is owned by my one of the close friend. Therefore comparison is obvious. We always compare between leadership, we always compare between various political personalities. So comparison, that is that same method we are going to introduce in academic discipline like political science. Then we discover a new method, that is a comparative. But again I'm saying that what is the basic purpose? To compare objectively rather than showing that I am perfect and my all goods which I am keeping, that is perfect. That should not be there. Although critics says that there was some intention of the political scholars which are associated with US and European nation, they are more willing to display the superiority of liberal democratic system rather than comparing objectively. That is allegation. But that allegation we have to discuss later. But this is a context of 1960s why comparative politics became as a new tool for comparing between the government, between the political system, between government and political system. Remember, I am only focusing over comparison, comparative. What is a politics? That we have to consider later. But second question, why comparison? If that new method of comparative politics emerged in 1960s, and reason is very much here. Then the next question arises that what is the need of comparison? And why we want to compare? And what we want to compare? If we want to compare, that it means it is first for getting the knowledge. See, although that is very vague term, getting the knowledge, because getting knowledge means just like we want to give the name of some scholars, like when Duverger, Sartori, they try to understood the party system of various European nation, then Duverger classified political parties in various type. Then Michels also read about the political parties. It means in order to comparing political parties between different nations, we come to know about what is the functioning of political parties, and that is a use of comparative politics. What is importance of comparative politics in more? See, if you want to know the meaning of comparative politics in a more familiar way, then second example we can take why India is running with the parliamentary form of government, because we are facing the such kind of instability, and time and again people say that why we are not switching over to the presidential form of government, and how we are going to adopt the presidential form of government. Therefore, we must know that what is the advantage of presidential form of government, what is the drawback of presidential form of government, and that is only known through the comparison. Again, this is getting knowledge. So the term getting knowledge is a wider, whatever we are studying, because what is the purpose of studying political science? To get some knowledge about the functioning of government and state, and how we can give the numerous example, just like how we are getting the knowledge. I am giving you some practical example, although you are not supposed to write all the practical examples. Practical examples should be written in only 1 or 2 lines. It is 1 line, not more than that. Always write theoretically. It means what is said by Duverger, what is said by Mukherjee. Always refer the scholar's view rather than our own view, but our own understanding is equally important. Why? See, recently there is election. Election is about to held in Israel, and you look what is the kind of political instability in Nepal. Do you know that why these kind of instability is emerging? Because Israel is adopting the list system of representation. In Nepal, half of the constituency, their election is held on the basis of list system. It means Nepal somehow combine the list system with first past the post system. Half of seat of Parliament of Nepal is elected through the first past the post system, and rest 50% is elected through the list system. It means that is a knowledge. It means in a case where we are using the list system of representation, there's more likelihood of instability of the government, and the 2 examples are very much visible before us. That is a knowledge. It means you can give a various example, but while the comparison, and that is the reason why comparative method is good, because behavioralists fail to study the entire literature of political theory, because behavioralists only collected the data and they failed to evolve any general political theory. So why not we are experimenting a new method that is known as a comparative method? Why we are not experimenting a new method? and that is a comparative method. So these are whether electoral system, whether constitution, which kind of constitution is better, presidential form is better, is a parliamentary form of government is better, or the quasi-presidential form of government is better, that we want to scrutinize. And how we are getting that knowledge? Only and only through comparison. That is comparative politics. See why I gave the example of Israel, why the news of Nepal is very important for us, because Law Commission of India also suggested the introduction of a list system of representation in India too. Therefore, it is worth noting that in a vast democratic country like India, whether list system will make a stable government or this will further destabilize the government. Destabilize the government, or what is more important? Development is more important, or democracy is more important? Development is more important, democracy is more important. That is also kind of knowledge. So first purpose is getting knowledge. Obviously, what is the entire purpose of discussion over academic discipline? So automatically getting knowledge. Second advantage or second objective behind the study of comparative politics is, or sorry, not only politics, forget about politics. As for now, we want to concentrate over the comparative method only. Later we have to see what does it mean by politics. So what is comparative? Second, evaluation of good practices. See, getting knowledge and evaluation of good practices are somehow interrelated with each other. They are not totally different with each other. And how good practices means, in order to comparing between different form of government, constitution, ultimately, eventually we are also knowing that what is a better feature of any constitution, what is a better feature of a functioning of government in any particular country. And I want to give you some example, like in Germany. See, German political system introduced a better provision for prevention of instability in the parliamentary form of government. And what is that better feature? And that is introduction of constructive no confidence motion. So that is good practices. So constructive no confidence motion, that is introduced by Germans. Why? Because parliamentary form of government rests on the principle of day-to-day responsibility. It means we can pass a no confidence motion against the government at any time. But no confidence motion ensure the ouster of government, that we can remove the government, existing government, but no confidence motion is not creating any constructive government. That what should be the government, what is the alternative model. Therefore, it means constructive no confidence simply means before bringing about a resolution against the government, a no confidence resolution against the government, first you show that whether you are capable to form an alternative government. If no political party is capable to form an alternative government, they will not allow to bring down the government. That is a good practices in Germany. Look, there are numerous good practices. Look, what is the good practices in British parliamentary system? And if you look the good practices in 1993, Indian parliamentary system also brought about, incorporated the parliamentary committee system from the American political system. So how we can know about the comparison? And look, nowadays, see, I am saying that one example is sufficient. Do not write too much examples, because write theoretically. Because what Mukherjee find out, that later we will give the name of various scholars. And see, nowadays people always compare Singapore. Singapore is known as good governance. How right to information is available in Singapore. How there is a implementation of good governance in Singapore, then why we not borrowing the same thing for India too? And without comparison, we can't obtain the good practices. And see, that is better way to compare. What is the ultimate purpose of compare? If I'm comparing with anyone, yes, we should learn something better from him, rather than we always show. If our intention is that no, what is our purpose behind comparison? Because ultimately, I will prove that I am a greatest. No, that is not a purpose. And third, objectivity. Third is objectivity. You know that objectivity means that should be an objective of any academic discipline, because the political scientists are not the member of political parties, and our findings should not be biased with our own ideology, our own prejudices, and therefore a political scientist must be different from a poet, from a agent of political party. Therefore, I may prefer some particular ideology, but that ideology should not influence my studies. That ideology should not influence my studies, and that is objectivity. Objectivity means which should not be changed, which is not going to change from person to person. Subjectivity means which is changing from person to person. And therefore, scientific studies are always objective, because that is a part of measurement. And behavioralist movement was looking for the objective studies. And look, whosoever claim that I am a political scientist, they should find the objective studies. And since behavior revolution could not get the desired result, therefore another attempt was made by the comparative method. And comparative method means we want to compare that. Objective study means which institution is better, whether it is a Council of State in India or a Senate. Our analysis should be objective. Which, because if I am a follower of any particular ideology, and then I'm claiming that no, this political system is good because why? Because this is a view of mine. No, this is not objective. Objective means it is objectively, you should show objectively that what is the advantage of that political system, what is the drawback of that political system, and what is the advantage of other political system which we are suggesting for incorporation. In that case, see, there may be various drawback of list system of representation, but there is a certain features of list system of representation too. There is a certain positive outcome that we can't ignore. If there is certain advantage of a first past the post system, there is certain drawback of the first past post system too. So our study must be objective. Objective means we should be free from biases and our own ideological preferences. It means comparative politics should not, because remember, the emergence of comparative politics is 1960s, and that was a phase where the ideological war was going on. And in that case, if some liberal scholar is claiming that no, only liberal political system is the best, therefore it's not a objective study. Show you result, show you the advantage and disadvantage of your system, and as advantage and disadvantage of other system, then objective. Otherwise, you are not studying the communist system, and by studying only liberal political system, and we are claiming that no, my own system is better. That is not objective. And see, what is objective? If we want to see there is a relation between democracy and development, so Leak One, the Leak One hypothesis, the former PM of Singapore, Leak One says that democracy and development, they are just contrary with each other. They can't go in hand. They can't go in hand. It means they can't be synthesized. But same time, if you look the assumption of Amartya Sen, Amartya Sen says that democracy and development, it is complementary with each other. And that is objective study. It means we have to compare from the multiple perspective. and only then we can find out the real result. In that way, that is a purpose of comparative method, utility of comparative method, advantage of comparative method. So this is the advantage. And next, what we should compare? Next is, or see, how we should compare, then what? How we should compare? And there are various methods to compare, because first, what is the background of origin of comparative politics? Second, what is the advantage of comparison? And third, how we should compare? There are numerous ways to compare anything. How compare? Because we are dealing with the comparative method. How to compare? See, there may be a comparison between the political system of two nations. There may be comparison between the two wings of the government in the same nation. There are multiple ways to compare. It means how we can compare one political system. We can study regarding the one political system too, and then we can compare. How? Because in one political system we can compare, like here we are using the historical method. How historical method? Because there may be historical comparison too. Because, for example, how party system is related with the functioning of federal government in India. We want to know about, because we don't want to compare between India and US. But we want to know about the India only, because we want to compare only one political system, that is Indian. And what is the meaning of political, I will tell you later. As of now, we are more concentrating over the comparative. It means how federal form of government work with the one dominated party system in India, like Maurice Jones, Rajini Kothari says that. Or how, like Professor M.P. Singh said that, ardent contact of Douglas Varney, they have examined that how federal form of government changed in India due to emergence of a coalition government. And that is a comparison. It means we want to study the Indian constitution government in two different historical phases. It means before 90, when almost there was a one party domination, that is historical. Once we are saying that what happened before 90, how Indian federal form of government functioned before 90, when there was a one party domination of Congress, and how it is functioning after 90, after dominance of regional parties, whether federalism became more federal. So which party system is more conducive for the functioning of the federal system? It is a comparison, and we are adopting the past are two periodical phase in a same political system. Two periodical phase in a same political system. Just like, it means we can give other example too. It means we can also compare that how US federal system operated before Second World War. It was more federal, and how US political system became more tilted more in favor of a federal government, and how the autonomy of a state were compromised after Second World War because of emergence of welfare state, because of Second World War, or because of a rising connectivity and globalization in the world. This is also, so we can compare in one political system through two different historical periods. That is a comparison. There is one way to compare, and then we can know the result, that how our system is working. Second way to compare, that is you can say also it is horizontal, longitudinal, various way to express the same thing. We can compare between the two political systems too. That is one political system within one system, and here we can compare the two political system too. Just like Casey Ware try to compare Indian federal system with US federal system. And then Casey Ware is reaching over the conclusion that how Indian federal system is a more a unitary nature rather than a federal. And this is the comparative. You can say it is a horizontal comparison. It is a longitudinal comparison because we are picking up two political system. And we can give the example of Maurice Duverger. And Maurice Duverger or Michels. See how Maurice Duverger try to compare the study between two political parties, that is the cadre party and the mass party. And for Duverger, cadre party means that is exist in European nations. Mass party exists in a European socialist nation. Cadre party is that is found out in the system of US. Cadre parties means the parties which are only winning for the vote, only winning for the election, and they are less connected with the masses. With the parties which are very much connected with the masses, they are known as a mass party. And same thing I will tell you in the section of political parties too, because comparative politics also includes study of pressure group, study of political parties. See, it means we want to study two political system. On the one hand, there is a US. On the other, it is a European political system. It is European. So there is a numerous method to compare. We can compare within the one political system. We can compare in the two opposite political system. And same time, we can compare. It means where compare. We can also compare in the two similar political system or two unsimilar. There is a third way to compare. Two political system, if you want to compare something, it may be similar, it may be dissimilar, unsimilar too. Because similar means we can compare the two parliamentary form of government working in a two nation, that is a similar comparison. And if we want to compare, see, parliamentary form of government with presidential, that is a unsimilar. So there may be numerous way to compare. That may be similar, that may be, see, unsimilar. And apart from that, and what is the purpose? What is the purpose behind this each and every comparison? And that is getting knowledge, objectivity, and gaining good practices. Purpose is same. Because what is the purpose of comparative method? That's very clear. Because we want to gain some knowledge, good practices, and objectivity. Therefore, we can ultimately conclude that which political system is better than other, how we are practicing that political system, how we can remove the drawback of that political system. And that is where how we are suggesting that how political systems should reform in that way. And see, comparison may be the various type, like a macro comparison, and it may be micro too. Macro comparison in fact means a general comparison. See, general comparison means if we want to study, general comparison means just like Duverger, you can write name of Duverger to Michels to the scholars which are the very much known scholar for a comparative politics. General comparison simply means we want to find out, like Duverger said, that there is any relation between the form of government or party system and the electoral system. if we want to search any relation between party system and electoral system, and that is a general or macro comparison. We want to compare as much as political system we can. Therefore, or we are a general comparison maybe other two, that how presidential form of government is more stable than the parliamentary one. General comparison is macro. Macro means a large scale comparison. And why large scale comparison can give a good data? Because ultimately we are going to conclude that which premise is better. And in that context, Maurice Duverger said that in case of because if you want to find out relation between electoral practices and party system, wherever two party system is there, likelihood of wherever first past the post electoral system is, likelihood of two party system is more inevitable, obvious to come. It means representation system means first past the post system, list system. Party system means two party, one dominated party system. In that context, Duverger says that adoption of first past the post system may lead to two party system. And adoption of a list system is automatically creates a multi-party system. So that is a macro comparison. We can compare this from India, Israel to US to Britain. So we can give a numerous data, and then ultimately we are going to find out some objective knowledge. And in that context, we are getting some good practices too. And good practices means we have to see in the fact that Israel may be unstable because of use of list system, but various Scandinavian nations are not unstable with the adoption of list system. Can you imagine the fact that in Switzerland, 7 presidents work at a time. And in Switzerland, there is a unique system. There is no provision of Council of Minister. There is no provision of Council of Minister. There is no president, no vice president, prime minister. All are the president. And that is unique. And that is how we want to search the good system. How we want to search some good system. Until unless we are comparing with each and every system, how we can get the good system. And in that context, you look in the second paper of General Studies too, how UPSC has introduced the notion of comparative method. Because whenever we have to study the constitution or the constitution schemes of the various nations, what is that comparison? And see how referendum, plebiscite, recall, initiative, these are the method which is utilized by Swiss political system. Can it is feasible to exercise in India? Comparison. So we can come general or macro level comparison. And see, we can also do the comparison like a micro. Micro means we want to study the comparison between how the House of Lord of England, is not powerful enough in comparison to the Senate of United States of America. Why the Senate of US is more powerful than the House of Lords in England? This is also comparison, but it is a comparison at a particular level. It is more specific level. Therefore, it's micro, it's small in nature. It's general. So comparison may be particular or micro or general, macro. Comparison between two political system, that is a horizontal, longitudinal. There may be comparison in one political system in a two separate time frame. And these are different methods of comparison. There may be comparison, and look, that is the way how I have told you. And this is also written in the slide that comparison may be similar or unsimilar, general or particular, historical. So these are the various way how we want to compare the things. It means comparative. As far as the comparative is concerned, we have answered the two questions. First, when it evolved. Second, how we compare. And next is what we want to compare. What is the content? And if we want to know that what we want to compare, then we have to discuss about the politics. Because as far our discussions concerned till now, only we have discussed about the comparison. What means comparison? But second is what is the politics? Then because now we want to know that what is the essence, what is the content of comparison, what is subject matter of comparison. About comparative method we know that, although finally we have to also know that what is shortcoming of comparative method, because no method is perfect. No method is perfect, so we will point out the shortcoming of comparative method too. But let's see what is the politics, what is subject matter of comparison. So let's see third point. What is the content of comparison? What is the subject of comparison or content or substance? And analyzing the content subject, we will analyze in fact the meaning of political. If you know the meaning of political, you can analyze that what we want to compare. First we know how we want to compare, when it came into existence, what is the purpose of comparison, and then what we want to compare. And in that context, look, traditional meaning of politics, because gradually the meaning of politics change from time to time, because we want to know that what we want to compare, what is subject content of comparison means. We want to same time discuss what political means. What does it mean by political? In that context, if you look what does it mean by political, first and foremost, political denotes something which is related with the state. Something related with his state and government, that is a political. Second, what do you mean by political? Because the form of branches of government like legislature, executive and judiciary, that is a form of that is the branches of government. And third, first state and government, then legislature, executive and judiciary, and third it is a constitution is important, which incorporates the power and function of various forms of government or various branches of government. And automatically when we want to study state and government, we can also say these are the various institutions. And how we come know about these institutions? Through the constitution. What constitution incorporates various branches of government. And since state is an abstract concept, therefore we want to know the government, because government is a concrete. You very well know that there is 4 elements of a state. It is a population, territory, government and sovereignty. State is an abstract. Abstract means it is subjective. State can't be seen. It is not seen anywhere, but it can be felt. Therefore the concrete form of a state is government. And therefore primary meaning of political deals with state, government, legislature, executive, constitution, institution. And therefore if we want to associate comparative with politics, if this is a traditional meaning of politics, then the comparative politics begin. Comparative politics is as old as the idea of Aristotle, Montesquieu. Why? Because this is the meaning of political, and again I am saying that this is a initial meaning of political. Initial meaning of political, it gradually changed. But look, how many people, how many scholars believe in that meaning of political? Look, therefore Aristotle. And this is reason why we know that evolution of comparative politics can be traced from the ideas of Aristotle. Again, you remember, Aristotle did not write any book over comparative politics, but as a subject matter, because if comparison means various branches of government, comparison means studying constitution, Comparison means comparison between the government, and that is beginning from Aristotle itself. Later it expanded. Aristotle, because what Aristotle described? Aristotle described 6 forms of the government. Look the comparison. And forms of government and constitution that is used by Aristotle interchangeably. Because if you look the form of government or the constitution, for that Aristotle say that is same. 6 form of the government. 3 are the perverted, 3 are the best form of government. In that 3, he also pointed out that some form of government are perverted. It is a perverted form of government or bad form of government, and some are the best form of government or the good. It is the best form of government or it is a better form of government. See, perverted means tyranny. Perverted form of government means tyranny. It is a oligarchy and it is democracy. These are perverted form of government. It is a bad form of government. And what are the good one? What are the good one? And that is aristocracy. See, same thing we study in the section of thinkers. It is a aristocracy, or you can write it is first monarchy, then first is a monarchy, then aristocracy, and then polity. So Aristotle was a philosopher who studied, who said that for Aristotle, politics means studying state and government. Politics means studying constitution, because that is a traditional meaning of politics which is accepted by Aristotle. And in that way, Aristotle became the first scholar who emphasized over comparison. And luckily, he's a father of political science too. And as a content, as a subject matter, he becomes a father of comparative politics too. And look how he is comparing between, because for Aristotle, form of government and constitution is same. And how he's comparing, what is his comparison? And he says that tyranny is the worst form of government. Remember, tyranny is the worst form of government and polity is the best form of government. But there's a two best. One is a practicable best and one is the best form of government. So as far as a practicable best means, see, there may be something best, like if you want to ask me that which aircraft is the best for you, then I will name. See, once upon a time in mythology, there was a Pushpak aircraft. Pushpak aircraft is best for me, but it is not available for me for board. Then what are the available aircraft? That may be Air India, Indigo, Lufthansa. Therefore, practicable best is something else. Best is something else. Which form of government is best? That is for Aristotle, monarchy. But practicable best is a polity. That is a comparison. And he told the reason too. Because of virtue. But that segment we have to really thinkers. Second, and he said that tyranny is the worst. Tyranny is the worst. Democracy is also not a good form of government, but it is slightly better than tyranny. It is slightly better than tyranny. And polity is not best, but it is a practicable best. Practicable best means it is a better among the existing form of government, which can be practiced. And that is a comparison. And you can't believe that the Aristotle, the philosopher like Aristotle, they also said that how democracy will succeed in a country where there are more people belonging to the middle class. It means democracy is unlikely to succeed. Democracy or polity, because As far as the practicable best form of government, he said that polity. But in today's term, we can also use democracy. He said that polity is a best form of government where the more people belonging to middle class and wherever rich are more or wherever poor are more, the probability of success of democracy is less. Wherever rich are more or wherever poor are more, are rich more powerful, poor people more powerful, then there is a chances of a instability in a democracy. But wherever middle class, us people belonging to middle class are more, there is a more likelihood of a stability of a democracy, and therefore Aristotle in that context become the father of comparative politics. Father of comparative politics, and it is not Aristotle only. And for Aristotle, was the traditional meaning of political state government, constitution, legislature, executive, judiciary. Next, same thing apart from Aristotle, that is also told by Montesquieu. Montesquieu, he also wrote. Aristotle wrote the Politics. It is the name of book of Aristotle. Montesquieu, the Spirit of Laws. Montesquieu wrote the Spirit of Laws, and Montesquieu tried to find out the geographical factors and a functioning of democracy. And Montesquieu says that geographical factors and democratic form of government are interrelated because in a geographical areas which are more tropical in nature, there is a less chance of succeeding the democracy in comparison to the area which are non-tropical. Ultimately, it means democracy is better for the European conditions. Again, I am saying that what is said by Aristotle, it may not be true, but that is a belief of Aristotle. What is said by Montesquieu, it may not be true. It may not be perfect because there may be various drawback in that. But as of now, we are saying that somehow they have practiced a kind of comparison. Therefore, Montesquieu also compare between a form of government, between democracy and a geographical factor. And see, only apart from Aristotle, apart from Montesquieu, various scholars are there. Alexis de Tocqueville, who wrote in Democracy in America, how he tried to compare that whether liberty is available in a democratic form of government or there's a danger for liberty in democratic form of government. That is studies by Alexis de Tocqueville. Alexis de Tocqueville says that liberty may not be. Alexis de Tocqueville wrote Democracy in America, and Alexis de Tocqueville says that democracy may not be function in a see, liberty may not be available in a democratic form of government, and that is, he gave example of US. And apart from that, apart from Montesquieu, there is Max Weber. So Montesquieu and de Tocqueville and then Max Weber, they all try to compare. Max Weber says that Max Weber wrote a book, Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. And Max Weber tried to compare between three modes of authority, and that is a traditional and then charismatic and rational legal form of authority. So Max Weber identified the three forms of authority: traditional, charismatic, and legal rational form of authority. And how he wrote A Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, and Max Weber tried to find out a correlation between the development of capitalism and the spirit of Protestantism. And Max Weber said that how the spirit of capitalism is very much similar to the ethic of Protestantism. And that is the reason he says that why capitalism came first in Europe. It is because of the culture of the Protestantism, which was absent in the Catholics. Because Protestants will always look for the material world, And they said that becoming rich and getting the material prosperity is not against the attainment of salvation, or it is not against the spiritual inclination. And see, these are the numerous forms of comparative politics. Therefore, in that way, comparative politics has always been there, and that is propounded by various scholars. Then you can ask the question, then why we are saying that comparative politics emerged in 1960s only? Then there may be logical question, there may be logical inconsistency, because once I am saying that comparative politics, it is whether it is Aristotle, Montesquieu, de Tocqueville, Max Weber, they are also involved in the comparison. And by comparison, they are getting some knowledge, they are getting good practices. Because see, what is good practices? Where liberty is available, where democracy will function. But same time, then why we are saying that comparative politics emerged in 1960s? Then again, I'm clarifying that. See, two things are not contradictory, because comparative politics emerged in 1960s because neither Montesquieu nor Max Weber nor Aristotle, they never claim that we are the propounding comparative politics first. They never claim that. And look, their name a book that is not oriented towards comparative politics, but it is a scholar who are writing comparative politics in 1960s. They have pointed out that yes, as a content, as a substance, comparative politics is as old as thought of Aristotle. As old as thought of Aristotle. So this is a traditional meaning of politics, and according to that, what is the traditional approach of comparative politics, or you want to find out what is the evolution of comparative politics. If you want to see origin of comparative politics, history of comparative politics, and that we can trace from Aristotle onwards. But look, in 20th century, meaning of politics change. Gradually, how meaning of politics change, but in 20th century, some scholar try to compare between various government, various form of government. And look, in 20th century, the scholars who try to compare between the various forms of government, various branches of government, they are James Bryce, Herman Feiner, and carefully you can look the name of their books, because later I will tell you that how this indicates the form of government, the way of comparison. What they are writing? Modern democracies. What Herman Feiner wrote? Theory and practices of modern government. And what Carl Frederick wrote? Constitutional government and democracy. It means they are writing in 20th century. Therefore, comparative politics began from Aristotle onwards. But if you look in 20th century, whether it is Feiner, Bryce, and Frederick, I have written name of a few. But apart from that, there is Behavioralism too, there is a Dicey too. They are also trying to compare between the various forms of government, and here too, they also subscribe that politics stand for studying state and government. Remember, the scholar who belong to 20th century, for them, politics means state and government. Politics means form of government. Politics is a constitutional. In that way, if you look at the study of a Feiner, whether it is a Bryce, it is a Feiner, Frederick, all the scholars who are writing in 20th century, and look, then their name of book is government, form of government. They are writing in 20th century, and for them, what is a form of government? State government. branches, legislature, executive, judiciary. It means for them, the meaning of politics is very much narrower. And for Bryce, Feiner, and Frederick, and you can, apart from you can also write the name of Dicey, Beijehart. For them, what is the meaning of political? It is very narrower, because what is meaning of political, and that is somehow related to form of government. It is democracy, form of government. It is a legislature, executive, and judiciary. Same thing is there. And for them, what is a political? Which is somehow more a democratic system, that is a political, because they are more focusing over a democratic system. Their focus is more over the European and American system. Their focus is more over the European and American government, because the system term later we will use. They are more focusing over American and European government. It means this is reason traditional approach of comparative politics, because approach means the way how we want to look. If you look traditional approach of comparative politics, they recognize the narrower meaning of politics. The narrower meaning of politics deals with state and government, branches of government, and see constitution which incorporates the various branches of government, and institutions means legislature, executive, judiciary. And same time, these scholars are, for them, meaning of political is same. Therefore, their approach of comparative politics is known as a traditional approach of comparative politics, but they are not writing book on the name of comparative politics. That is very important. None of these scholars use the term comparative. Then how we can know that how they are a traditional approach of comparative politics? Because none of the scholars are claiming that they are studying comparative politics, because they are claiming for studying constitution, they are claiming for studying democracy, then the practice of government. But in 1960s, the Mukherjee Nagar, who evolved the comparative politics as a discipline, they said that they belong to the traditional approach of comparative politics. And that is reason, don't be confused. And that is reason, again I'm repeating that comparative politics is a discipline, a separate method of study that came only 1960s onwards. But when these scholars like Mukherjee Nagar, then various other scholars, Amand and Powell, they try to analyze the comparative politics. They came to know that no, the literature of comparative politics was available earlier too. And what was earlier literature of comparative politics? That is in form of Aristotle, in form of Montesquieu, see Max Weber, and in 20th century it was present in form of Bryce, Feiner, and Frederick. Bryce, Feiner, and Frederick. And therefore, it is only see Eckstein and Blondel. They try to say that no, this is a traditional approach of comparative politics. And why traditional? Because it was dealing with state and government. Why traditional? Because it was normative. Why normative? Because when they have deal with state and government, automatically they focusing over democratic form of government. And democratic form of government is always associated with values, liberty, equality, justice. Normative. And then they are somehow concentrating their studies in Europe and US. But the logical question arises that why it is traditional method of comparative politics? Because traditional method of comparative politics deals with the institution, state and government, and it is somehow avoiding the larger perspective. Whether it is a Bryce, Feiner, Frederick, okay, they have studied the government state, but in fact they fail to view the larger perspective of comparative politics. Therefore, Therefore, in 1960s, the expansion of meaning of politics became broader. It was expanded because look what was their drawback. What is the drawback of comparative method of politics? They study government, democracy, they studies constitution. But what is the problem? After Second World War, and not only after Second World War, between First and Second World War, fascist government also came into picture. Fascist government emerged in Europe, but they were not concentrating over study of the fascist government. Is it comparative politics? Because again, I'm saying that traditional method of comparative politics means you are emphasizing over institutions, form of government, democracy, and although if you are concentrating over Europe, America, then this is surprising. Why? Because we are not writing title as comparative politics of Europe. What does it mean? How we can say that this is a method of physics which is only for Europe? The theory of gravitation, that is not applied only for Europe, that is for the entire world. And since we want to know the objectivity of any discipline, then why it is only for Europe? Because we did not write the heading comparative politics for Europe. It is comparative politics. Comparative politics means as a discipline which is useful for all, in Asia too, in Africa too. But can you imagine, subject wise their study is limited, as a content their study is limited. Why? Because they are focusing about democracy. Then why we can't accept that there was a communist government too since October 1916, so October 1917 onwards? There was a communist government between First and Second World War. So the question arises that James Bryce is more satisfied with democracy, but why not studying the non-democratic government? Because year in 1921 when he is writing, there was a communist government in Russia. And look, it is practices of modern government. At that time, somehow fascism was defeated. Fascism was defeated, but communist form of government was still there. And that is reason it is said that the comparative method, which was the earlier traditional approach of comparative politics, is a narrower. What is the drawback? See, what is the drawback? It is a narrower in their scope, because it is only focusing over a democratic form of government and somehow neglecting the non-democratic form of government. In fascism, see, communist form of government, one party dictatorship, they are somehow neglecting. So is it a comparative method, or it is a kind of a biasness, prejudice, which shows that no, liberal political system is best, democratic political system is best, and there is no alternative for democracy? And this is a problem. Second, it is narrower not only in a form of government, but it is narrower in geographical area too, because they are missing Asian Africa. Because why we are not study the Asian Africa? It means what they assume that none of our Asian Africa, it is a democratic form of government, and democratic form of government, liberal form of government, that's the best. And the people of Asian Africa, and they are not capable to govern themselves, and that is what is the entire theory of whitesman burden. So only European people are there which are more capable to govern the Asian Africa. It means it is avoiding in narrower in form of government too, narrower in a geographical perspective too. And third, they are comparing that what is various forms of government only in presidential parliamentary, because they are concentrating on democracy, unitary federal, and they are dealing with the legislature, executive, judiciary. What is their content? This is same. What is their content? It is same. What is their content? It is this. But they are unable to find out that what is the reason behind difference. So their study is more descriptive, not analytical. See, descriptive means Once we find out that true, there is a difference between parliamentary form of government and presidential form of government, it is accepted. Why? Why? So they are not telling that. Why they are not telling that? Therefore, it is a credit for comparative analysis of government, comparative analysis of branches of government that go to Bryce, Feiner, and Frederick. But somehow their study is incomplete, their study is not sufficient, and this is reason why there was a reason that why the modern approach of comparative politics, the real approach of comparative politics emerged. Because the emergence of comparative politics in 1960s, it was not emerged in 3 centuries BC, neither emerged in 19th century. Comparative politics emerged in 1960s. Therefore, contemporary scholars, they said that no, they are the traditional approach, and how they are missing some larger issues because they are not comparing in a various opposite form of government, like they are ignoring fascist form of government, they are somehow ignoring communist form of government, and they are totally unaware of what is happening in Asia and Africa. It means, and they are not aware of the real functioning of government. Because why? Why only comparison between state and government? Because KC here, one example I'm telling you, why this approach, a traditional approach of comparative politics, is known as legal institutional. Why legal? Because they concentrate over constitution. Why institution? Through constitution they read out the various forms of government. See, KC Weir says that Indian federal system is not a federal in true spirit, it is a quasi-federal. And can you see what happened in India after 90, when regional parties became very powerful? And then really state government became more powerful in comparison to the union government, but that could not be examined by KC Weir because KC Weir was more interesting in studying the constitution. Can you see? Can you agree with this kind of drawback of a traditional method of comparative politics? And again, I am telling you drawback. See, because they are concentrating over this government, legislature, executive, constitution. If we want to examine that Indian parliamentary form of government, why Manmohan Singh was one of the weakest prime minister, and why Modi became the one of the strongest prime minister, they failed to give the reason. Because this is not at all written in the constitution. See, further I am again telling you, can you understand Indian federal system without knowing party system? Answer is no. Can we understand the relation between president and prime minister without understanding party system? And party is not written in any constitution. Party, pressure groups, they are not described in any constitution. Therefore, what is the drawback of traditional method? They are not analytical and they fail to understand the functioning of the government, the real operation of the government, but only they are focusing over the institution which is written in the constitution. Because why Modi became very powerful prime minister? And that answer lies in the rise of BJP as a political party. This is nowhere the constitution can tell us. And these are the drawback of the traditional approach of comparative politics, which is known as a legal institutional. Legal institutional, and propounder of Bryce, Feiner, and Frederick. In that context, the meaning of politics became larger, and then the modern approach came into existence. Now we want to see the expanded meaning of politics, and then modern approach of comparative politics. Second, how the meaning of politics became expanded, and thereafter the approach of comparative politics also became enlarged. That is traditional approach, and that is the traditional meaning of politics. Look how the meaning of politics expanded. And therefore, with that expanded meaning of politics, meaning of comparative politics also became expanded. So first meaning of politics, it was related with state and government, but now it is realized that no, political parties and pressure groups, they also come within the domain of politics. And what is a political parties and pressure group? This is known as a group politics. This is what is a group politics. How it is expanded? Now, it is not only group politics, it is also known as a power politics. It is also known as a form of decision making. It is known as a process, not institution. Remember, look, what is a traditional meaning of politics? State government, legislature, executive, judiciary, constitution, institution, that is very fixed, static. But here, how expanded meaning of politics? And again, I am saying that is not all. Later, it is further expanded. Later, it expanded further. But before, or you want to how it later expanded? Now, apart from that, second expansion, the behavior of individual also became the subject matter of politics. And you very well know that with that there was a arrival of behavioralism. Behavior of individual also became subject matter of politics. That was a further expansion of meaning of politics. And when the meaning of politics expanded, automatically comparison will also expanded. And therefore there was a arrival of modern approach of comparative politics. And then again it was a further expansion. Later it was decided that merely studying party pressure group is not sufficient, and now they focus over the society in form of political sociology. Further, they said that no, without studying society, without studying economy, and without studying modernization, without studying development, how we can understand the politics? Nowhere. Look, this is expanded meaning of politics, and therefore comparison automatically became expanded. And here, see, political pressure group, political parties, they became very important, because till now the meaning of politics was limited to study of state and government, constitution, institution. And see how it expanded. Here, pressure group. If you look in the first century of first decade of a 20th century, and there were the scholar like Arthur Bentley who said that human nature in politics. And then Graham Wallas. Graham Wallas wrote a Human Nature in Politics, and then Arthur Bentley came. Then Arthur Bentley wrote The Process of Government. David Truman came, Governmental Process. Look the name of book. How things have undergone the change. It means what Graham Wallas wrote, Human Nature in Politics. Human nature, it means state government, nothing. We have to do nothing. And see why there was some sort of impact of psychology over the political science. Because psychology always emphasized over study of human nature, motivation, memory, learning, and human nature in politics. And again, and look, process of government. Arthur Bentley wrote The Process of Government, and David Truman wrote The Governmental Process. It means entire focus is on process. It means what is the meaning of politics? Power politics. And what is the power politics? We want to understand the dialogue of farmers and government, and that is real meaning of politics. You see, it is power politics means wherever there is a conflict, power lies. And you look, power politics, power doesn't mean violence. But the broader meaning of politics here means an art of conflict resolution is a politics. Wherever there is a conflict, there is a politics. Wherever conflict, there is a conflict in family too. Why conflict in family? because there is one TV set, and the younger people are what they want to watch Pogo. Kids want to watch Pogo. The some member they want to watch some match. I want to watch news. Conflict is bound to emerge because in society there is scarcity of resources, and people who are fighting for resources are more, and therefore conflict is inevitable. And who will settle conflict in their own favor? Who is powerful? Therefore, how we want to understand the ongoing talk between farmers and government? By state, constitution, government, article, IPC, CRPC? No, it is only by process. This is actual politics that lies in a decision making. And who make decision? Who is powerful? Who make decision is a powerful. And who process means process of talk, process of arriving at the decisions, process of voting. Therefore, government is a kind of process, and it is a power politics. It means we want to see the actual functioning of government rather than what is written in the constitution. That is meaning of politics. Because if in West Bengal election is supposed to be held in this year, therefore what is a process? How tickets are distributed? What is the process? How vote is turned? How vote is taken? This is a process. It means how practically government is functioned, how election is held. We are concentrating over that, and how there is a fight between BJP and Congress and TMC. That is a process. And therefore, study of political parties, pressure groups became more important, which is not mentioned in the constitution anywhere in the world. And later, behavioralists like Charles Merriam, Harold Laswell, who propounded power politics too, and they said that the meaning of politics means studying the voting behavior. Voting behavior is the meaning of politics, rather than liberty and democracy. Voting behavior, because they emphasize over measurement. And now they focus over the voting behavior. What is the percentage of voting? And it means what is study of politics? If the voting percentage is more, then whether it is a kind of anti-incumbency or the government which is in power, they will win the election. It means what is relation between voting percentage and party in power? And that is a new meaning of politics. That is objective, based on measurement. So here power, and power means the people, a group of people, a person who is capable to influence others. There's a power. That is a power. And again, behavior and larger, and finally it is said that because activities which is political is not exist in isolation, because political activities are there in context of society, and without understanding society, and because same form of government like a parliamentary form of government is practiced in India too and Britain too, but there is a difference in society. There is a difference in the economic development. They are more industrialized, they are more modernized. Therefore, how we can understand the same form of government if it is utilized in the two other social and economic system? So without knowing society, without knowing economy, how we can know about the politics? And therefore they have focused over society, economy. Look, this is larger meaning of politics. And if this is larger meaning of politics, which we can write in development of political theory too, and therefore because of that expanded meaning of politics, now we need modern approach of comparative politics, which is a real approach of comparative politics, modern approach. And if you ask that what is the reason behind the origin of modern approach of comparative politics, I told you. See, what is the drawback of traditional approach of comparative politics? That is a West-centric or Eurocentric, because traditional approach have never emphasized over the Asian Africa. Descriptive, they have only point out the differences or similarity, rather than telling that what is the reason behind that. It was not analytical, and it means they fail to study a more systematic, objective comparative politics, which is because comparative politics means we should be cross-cultural, cross-political. That is a comparative. We need a tool where we can apply everywhere. Forget about Europe, forget about Asia, Africa, cross-cultural, cross-political, and forget about the various forms of government. And this is the reason why modern approach of comparative politics emerge. And why modern approach of comparative politics emerge, same thing which I have told you. And you remember, this modern approach of comparative politics is a real meaning of comparative politics. And this is real beginning of comparative politics. That is exactly modern approach of comparative politics. And when Mukherjee, the people like Mukherjee, when they wrote a book, they said though the people who studied comparative politics earlier, it was not comparative politics, it was comparative government. It was not comparative politics. Then why? Why there was emergence of comparative politics? Then why this emergence of modern approach? Same which I have told you earlier. Because first, drawback of traditional approach. Second, proliferation of Asian African nation as a newly emerged country. And third, there was somehow influence of Marxism. Because Marxists always claim that liberal democratic study is not sufficient. Their study is incomplete. Their study is unscientific. And fourth, because behavioralist method failed to gain any general theory. Therefore, if you want to know what is the reason behind the development of modern approach of comparative politics, it is same which I have told you earlier, because this is a not only reason of a modern approach of comparative politics, but it is also reason behind the emergence of comparative politics. Because now you can know that these are the real propounder of comparative politics, Mukherjee, Henry, Eckstein. They're the real propounder of comparative politics. And they only said that, they only try to narrate that, oh, Aristotle was also there who wrote about comparative politics. Finer Bryce, they also wrote comparative politics, but their approach was a traditional. Their approach was a narrower. And this is the reason why new comparative method is developed. And look, very importantly, look, first time they have written a book, namely Comparative Politics. Before them, nobody was writing the name book of comparative politics, although various people have tried to compare things. Therefore, as an academic discipline, this is 1960s when comparative politics came into picture. It emerged as a discipline, although branch of political science. And again, perspective of comparative politics, and thereafter Armand, Omel Powell, various scholars contributed toward that. And look, in that way, traditional meaning of comparative politics we understood. Then I want to compare, before moving that, what is a modern approach of comparative politics. I want to understand that what is the essence of difference between traditional approach and modern approach. Look, because this is the expanded meaning of politics, and if meaning of politics is expanded, then automatically the meaning of comparative politics will also change at all. And see, if you look, the traditional approach of comparative politics, it is a legal institutional, and reason is very true, because they want to, institution means legislature should be judiciary, and legal means what is written in the constitution. And somehow they are more focusing over democracy. They are more focusing over democracy, and they are more Eurocentric. Their study is more Euro and US centric. And then critically you can say that what is comparison in that? Whether they are comparing or they want to impose liberal political values across the world. And that is a problem in traditional approach of comparative politics. Therefore, modern approach of comparative politics is real meaning of comparative politics. Therefore, if somebody is asking that, only write comparative politics, emergence of comparative politics, Therefore, it is logical that you have to focus over the modern approaches rather than writing these all the past background. You can write merely in one line or two line, because comparative politics means modern approach, because as academic discipline emerged in 1960s. Earlier it was as a subject matter. And then see why modern approach. See, modern approach of comparative politics is not legal institutional, but remember, modern approach of comparative politics is a functional, not legal institutional. Not legal institutional. Traditional approach of comparative politics is a legal institutional, and modern approach is a functional. And the meaning of function I will tell you in the Ormond and Powell. Just to compare, you can compare, then I will functional. Traditional approach of comparative politics more deals with state. Modern approach deals with political system, not a state. And there is a difference between system and look the term. Modern approach of comparative politics is functional, and you will ask the meaning of what is functional. Ormond and Powell is there. Then system, David Easton is there. We will study them. Therefore, I am not expanding the meaning of. But look, a kind of basic, that what is the difference between traditional approach and the modern approach. And look, they are emphasizing more legal institutional, they are functional. And functional simply means which is nothing to do with constitution. It is not written in the constitution, but actually it is happening. And what is functional? Look, what is the basic difference between legal, institutional, and functional? See, if we want to study a comparative, if you want to engage in a comparative study of judiciary of US and judiciary of India, then we can take the support of constitution. We can take support of constitution. This is a legal institution, like what is written in the US Constitution, what is written in Indian Constitution. According to that, we are comparing between judiciary of India and judiciary of US. But wherever we are comparing how judiciary actually function in India, how judiciary actually function in US, rather than what is written in the Constitution. And you know, PIL is not written in the Constitution. And therefore, we are more interesting to see judicial behavior, how in fact judges behave. What is the background of judges? What is the political affiliation of judges? There is or not. And therefore, recently a judge is appointed in US, and it is said that this judge is conservative and it is functional. It means how really? It means what? Because, and why functional approach is very important, why modern approach is very important. We want to study about the role of PM and how we can get anything from the Constitution, because Constitution does not describe about role of PM. Our Constitution is very much silent over role of PM. It is describe our role of President. It means merely going through Constitution, our study will not be sufficient. And further problem is that there are various nations which are not having the written Constitution, like UK. Although there is some piece of written element is there, but that drafted Constitution is not available in US like what is available in India and UK, India and US. But can you imagine that entire political system of US can be understood through a small piece of paper that is known as the Constitution? Answer is no. And second, whenever we are saying state simply means legislature, executive, and judiciary. State simply means government, and government comprise of legislature, executive, and judiciary. And but here we want to study political system, not state. And there is a difference between political system, because how state is exist in social and economic condition in its environment, that is a system. We want to see entire process, we want to see the entire environment, that is a modern approach. Again, there is a difference. Therefore, it is more comprehensive, it's more important. Second, traditional approach They are more Eurocentric. They are Eurocentric. Although this has always been debate that whether modern approach is really cross-cultural. And see, modern approach always look for a cross-cultural study. Cross-cultural, cross-political. And it is true that various scholars like Armand Verba, Armand Powell, Coleman, there are various scholars which have studied in developing nations, and therefore they have more focus over developing nation. So they claim that their study is more cross-cultural, cross-political. Cross-political means we have nothing to do with democratic political system. And see, that is objective meaning of comparative politics, because we should not focus over democratic form of government, because their studies mostly democratic, there was more Eurocentric, and they were more focusing over a democratic form of government. And here it is whenever we are cross cultural and cross political, so forget the Europe and Asia and Africa, we are focusing over each and every nation. We are focusing over each and every nation because we want to develop a comparative method which must be more scientific, objective. In that condition only we can get the true picture of a comparative politics, being a person from academics. And that is cross-cultural, cross-political. It means it should not be only study why we should not study non-democratic system too. Only then we can get the advantage of a democracy. And if we are ignoring the Chinese political system because why it's not democratic, then our entire purpose will not be fulfilled. Will not be fulfilled. And look in that, democratic too. They were more, say, geographically, functionally, they were narrower. And here they became broader because they want to study cross-cultural, cross-political system. And later, they also want to understand society, development. Society, it means development. In that context, see, modern approach means it is a system approach, it is a functional approach, and it is a political sociology and political economy too. Political sociology and political economy too. So modern approach includes Eastern's approach, structural approach, political sociology, political economy. So therefore it is analytical, it is more comprehensive, and this is real meaning of comparative politics. And because why? Because again I remind the condition in which they are, and now we have somehow associate the meaning of politics with comparative, because as the meaning of politics became expanded, same time the scope of comparative politics also became expanded. And therefore when a scholar, some people will say nature and scope of comparative politics. See, what is nature? It is somehow scientific or value oriented, its nature. Legal or functional, its nature. Scope means it is only concentrating over state or society to economy to function to see real environment to, then it is a scope. Therefore it means modern approach of comparative politics expanded the scope of scope means geographically it is covering all the system. Scope means politically it is covering all non-democratic system, non-liberal system too. They claim to do that. And therefore they are evolving a mechanism which is working cross-cultural, cross-political comparative studies, which were there lack in the traditional method of comparative politics. And time and again I'm repeating that. Therefore the true meaning of comparative politics is this. And why it emerged? Again I'm reminding, because of the after Second World War. After Second World War, behavioralism failed. After Second World War, see, Cold War was there. After Second World War, and failure of a traditional method of comparative politics, behavioral method. And in that context, although this debate has always been there, whether what is a claim of modern approach of comparative politics, that they are more objective, they are not having any biases toward a liberal democratic system, they don't have any biases toward the European American system. For them, Asian African system is equally important. Whether it is true or not, that we will analyze later. And that is our critical part. That is our critical part. But as far as the difference between traditional and modern approach of comparative politics is this. And you look, why I'm saying that really modern approach of comparative politics is real comparative politics. Otherwise, rest of the part is background. In fact, background only. Because if you look in our syllabus, where examiner is asking, it is only input system approach, and you see the questions too: political economy, political sociology, David-Easton, structural functional, and that is a comparative politics. Because if you look our syllabus carefully, then you will find out that this is the real meaning of comparative politics.